Chances are you've walked past someone dressed like this, or if you're unlucky, you might have seen someone who looks like this. The word that probably came to mind is rapper or hip-hop head, as many of these looks are directly tied to the genre of hip-hop. But how did this happen? How did a genre born in the Bronx lead to one of the most influential and constantly evolving styles in fashion history? To figure that out, we need to look at the origins and how the clothing matched the attitude of the culture at the time. If we go back to the early 1970s, hip-hop fashion didn't really exist. Yeah, that's right. Everyone was just wearing whatever they already had lying around. The Bronx was struggling economically and fashion wasn't exactly a priority. Hip-hop would emerge in 1973 at block parties in the South Bronx with DJ Kool Herc essentially inventing the genre by isolating breakbeats. The early fashion was purely functional. People wore what they had: bomber jackets, tracksuits, Lee jeans with permanent creases, ironed flat shoelaces, and whatever sneakers they could get their hands on. Brands like Adidas, Puma, and Pro-Keds became staples, not because of any sponsorship deal, but because that's what was available and affordable. The real genius was in how people wore this stuff. B-boys and B-girls needed clothes they could actually move in for breakdancing, so baggy was practical, not just a style choice. DJ Hollywood would rock his best disco-inspired threads to parties because in the 70s, you dressed up to party, even if it was on a street corner. This wasn't fashion rebellion, it was fashion necessity mixed with a little bit of showing off when you could. By the early 1980s, hip-hop was establishing its own identity, and so was the fashion. Run-DMC completely changed the game when they ditched the flashy performance outfits and just wore their everyday street clothes on stage. Adidas tracksuits, unlaced Showtell superstars, black fedoras, and fat gold chains. This was revolutionary because before this, performers dressed up for stage. Run-DMC said, nah, we're gonna dress like we dress, and if you don't like it, that's your problem. Their song My Adidas in 1986 led to the first major endorsement deal between a hip-hop group and a sportswear brand, worth $1 million. Not bad for just wearing what you like. LL Cool J popularized the Kangol bucket hat to the point where you couldn't separate the man from the hat. He also rocked troop tracksuits and those massive gold rope chains that became synonymous with hip-hop success. Meanwhile, you had cats like Slick Rick who took it to another level, draping himself in so much gold jewelry, he probably needed a chiropractor. The more chains, the more successful you looked. Or at least that's what everyone thought. Quick pause, if this kind of analysis interests you, feel free to hit the like button and subscribe for more. Then you've got Dapper Dan, who deserves his own documentary. This man opened a boutique in Harlem in 1982 and started making custom pieces using bootlegged luxury fabrics. He'd screen print Louis Vuitton, Gucci, and Fendi logos onto leather jackets, tracksuits, and bomber jackets. His clients included basically every important figure in hip-hop, from Big Daddy Kane to LL Cool J to Mike Tyson. Dapper Dan understood something crucial. People in the Bronx and Harlem wanted luxury fashion, but luxury fashion didn't want them. So he brought luxury to the streets on his own terms. The big fashion houses eventually shut him down in the early 90s for copyright infringement, but joke's on them because decades later, Gucci would partner with him officially in 2017, proving he was ahead of his time all along. The 1990s is what most people picture when they think classic hip-hop fashion, and for good reason. This was the era of baggy everything. Baggy jeans that could fit two people, baggy shirts that looked like dresses, oversized everything was the move. Artists like Tupac and Biggie made bandanas, Timberland boots, flannel shirts, and sports jerseys the uniform of the era. Timbs especially became so iconic that they're still a staple today. Those tan boots were everywhere in music videos, movies, the corner store, it didn't matter. The East Coast had what Diddy called ghetto fabulous style. Tommy Hilfiger, Polo, Ralph Lauren, Nautica, and DKNY were huge. Snoop Dogg wore a Tommy Hilfiger rugby shirt on Saturday Night Live in 1994, and it sold out in New York the next day. That's the power hip-hop had over fashion brands that previously wanted nothing to do with urban culture, suddenly realizing there was serious money to be made. TLC and Aaliyah brought their own flavor to it, pairing baggy jeans with crop tops and sports bras, creating a version of femininity that didn't require tight clothes. Then you had the artists starting their own brands, because why let Tommy Hilfiger get all the money? FUBU, which stands for Us By Us, launched in 1992 and became massive thanks to LL Cool J basically being a walking advertisement. Russell Simmons started Phat Farm, Diddy launched Sean John, Jay-Z and Damon Dash created Rocawear in 1999. These weren't just clothing lines, they were statements of ownership. Hip-hop artists were building empires, and at their peak, these brands were doing hundreds of millions in sales. Rocawear hit $700 million in sales at one point. Let that sink in. The early 2000s was when hip-hop said subtlety is for losers. This was the bling era, baby, and if you weren't dripping in diamonds, were you even trying? Grills became essential. Nelly literally made a song called Grills in 2005, and Paul Wall built an entire persona around his diamond teeth, which allegedly cost $150,000 for a set. Chains got bigger. Pennants got more elaborate. Rick Ross had a pennant of his own face covered in diamonds that cost over $1 million because apparently that's a thing people do. The bling era wasn't just about jewelry though. It was about excess. Do-rags became mainstream thanks to rappers like Ja Rule. Throwback sports jerseys were everywhere, especially Mitchell & Ness joints that cost hundreds of dollars. Velour tracksuits were somehow fashionable. Ed Hardy and Von Dutch trucker hats appeared on every celebrity head for reasons nobody can quite explain. Timberlands were still around because Timbs never leave, but the overall vibe was flashier, louder, more in your face. This was hip-hop at its most commercially successful, and the fashion reflected that success. Women in hip-hop were doing their own thing. Missy Elliott wore inflatable patent leather suits and futuristic gear that looked like it came from another planet. Lil' Kim used fashion as a weapon, wearing barely there outfits covered in designer logos and making no apologies. Eve rocked leather pants and chain-link tops that matched her Rough Rider's edge. These women weren't dressing for male approval, they were dressing to dominate. By the 2010s, something interesting happened. The line between streetwear and high fashion started disappearing completely. Kanye West was a huge part of this shift. He went from polo and backpacks to leather kilts and Balmain, working with brands like Louis Vuitton and Adidas to create Yeezy. Suddenly, rappers weren't just wearing designer clothes, they were designing them. Pharrell had been doing it since the early 2000s with Billionaire Boys Club, but now it became the standard. Brands like Supreme, Off-White, Bape, and Palace exploded in popularity. Tyler the Creator and Odd Future made Supreme their logo, and suddenly every teenager wanted a box logo tee that cost $300 on the resale market. Virgil Abloh founded Off-White and then became the artistic director of Louis Vuitton's menwear in 2018. A literal streetwear designer running one of the biggest luxury fashion houses in the world. The Supreme and Louis Vuitton collaboration in 2017 was the moment everyone realized streetwear had won. A$AP Rocky became a fashion icon known for mixing high fashion with vintage streetwear. Travis Scott did the same, blending skate culture, punk influence, and luxury brands into his look. The overall aesthetic became more individualistic, less uniform than previous eras. Skinny jeans started replacing baggy ones, though that would swing back the other way later, and sneaker culture reached insane heights with collaborations between rappers and Nike or Adidas becoming instant sellouts. Today, hip-hop fashion is basically everything and nothing at the same time. It's so diverse and individualistic that trying to pin down one look is impossible. You've got artists like Lil Uzi Vert wearing full punk rock aesthetics with face tattoos and chains. You've got Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B in designer bodysuits and custom couture. You've got Young Thug breaking gender norms, wearing dresses on album covers. You've got Tyler the Creator still doing his own weird, colorful thing. The baggy aesthetic made a comeback in the late 2010s and stuck around, proving fashion really is cyclical. Sustainability became important, with artists promoting vintage and upcycled clothing. Luxury brands fully embraced hip-hop, with everyone from Gucci to Balenciaga to Dior working with rappers and incorporating streetwear elements into their collections. The Dior and Jordan collaboration, the Balenciaga oversized puffer jackets, the Gucci tracksuits, it's all hip-hop influenced. And that brings us to today, where you can't walk down any street without seeing someone in something influenced by hip-hop fashion at some point, whether they know it or not. The kid in the oversized hoodie and cargo pants? Obviously hip-hop. The person in the Timberlands? Yep, that's hip-hop. The Supreme box logo? The Yeezy slides? The Air Force Ones? all hip-hop. Hip-hop took fashion from the streets to the runway and made the entire industry bend to its will. Not bad for a genre that started at block parties in the Bronx. Smash that like button, subscribe if you want more music-related content, and comment which era you want me to analyze next. Your suggestion might be the next video.